it made that experience even worse in my eyes because, you know, God forbid I did have a seizure or something like that, and it could have been prevented if they just let me up with my baby.
Yeah. I think it's important for me to say to you, and also for you to know that I have the same expectation of myself, but I am not a safe place for your like dumping of negative energy. Don't get live with me. Get live with whoever. You know what I mean? Don't get live with me. You need to be mad and applying pressure on all these other people. I wanna make you mine, make you mine, make you mine, What's up, everybody? It's your man Sergey the DJ. This is the lovely Marissa, aka Rissa J Shoots, aka OG Mommy Status, aka Prayer Movement Icon, aka I'm out. All right, so man, it's been a long time coming, a long time since we done one of these episodes. Excuse my sip of the tea. But today we I'll say me, I needed it. Because today's been a day, this whole week's been a week. But it's been so long since we've done an episode. I think the last one was in December of, I'm just going to get rid of these. The last one was in December.
Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, December 2020. And so much has happened since then. We bought a new house. That's actually where we are now. I'm in my office upstairs, which is weird. Our last house did not have a second floor. But we bought a new house.
We found out we were pregnant.
Yeah, we found out we were pregnant. Yes. And we recently had the baby.
Yep.
Just
she might.
Yeah, y'all will hear her in a minute. I'm sure she's been sleeping a minute. But yeah, we had a baby just about 8 days ago, and that whole thing was a lot, which is kind of what led us to where we are now. I wanted to just kind of this is very therapeutic for us to just kind of be able to talk about it. Yeah. I didn't even want to release this. I just wanted to shoot it, and just, this is a space, I guess, a safe space for us. And so I guess we're releasing it.
I'm not tripping.
Okay. And
but let's just act like we're not going to release this so we can get the most out of each other in the conversation.
Cool.
Because I really do want to hear, your side of things and all the things.
So one, when I thought about, and I wrote it down on this little paper over here, how I would title it, if this was an episode, I would title it "This Hard," or PC version, "This ish is hard." It's really hard to deal with a lot of this, what's been happening, what's transpired over the last week or so. From a few different angles, and one of which I didn't even write down here. I'm gonna do that now, but what I have written down is kind of a you me kind of thing, and I wanted to kind of first give you the floor to talk about your experience with the pregnancy, and especially talking through GD and preeclampsia and everything.
Were you want me to talk about that now?
That was a swing. I was swinging that to you.
I thought you were gonna go through everything that you wanted to talk about, but if I can summarize my pregnancy, I would say that I am one of the few women that does not like being pregnant.
Yeah.
It's a little hesitant for me to say that sometimes, because obviously there is a blessing in that, not every woman can actually carry a baby or carry a baby all the way through. So there is a bit of gratitude mixed in there somewhere, but overall my experience in terms of how I physically felt, it was not good for both pregnancies, because of the complications that I had and the diagnosis that I was given. specifically being diagnosed with gestational diabetes, and on top of that, preeclampsia. So, and that was with both pregnancies. So I
don't remember with the gestational, was that like right when we found out you were pregnant, they were like, yeah, you got it again?
Well, the way they do it is in your first pregnancy, they usually test every woman for gestational diabetes around 28 weeks, I think, somewhere around there. And so that's how I found out I had it the first time. But if you've had gestational diabetes in any of your previous pregnancies, they'll test you a lot earlier.
Okay.
And so that is how I found out that I had it with Heaven, our second baby. It's just because they tested me earlier.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
But yeah, it with that, it comes with gestational diabetes and with preeclampsia, that comes with its own boat of symptoms and extra things that you have to do, and just things that physically affect your body. But on top of that, there's this mental battle as well, because now you're considered high risk, and with that includes just some really scary, I don't want to say facts, but risks, risks of having a stillborn, or risk of seizures, risk of you and baby dying if, your blood pressure is too high,
which is the scary part for me.
And so that affected me mentally, because it's a really, really scary thing to have to work through. So overall, both of my pregnancies, I've always just felt scared. And I already had some leftover trauma from the first pregnancy that I was trying to work through in the second pregnancy, just to find out I'm going to have to fight the same battles I did with the first one. So it's kind of like peeling off an old wound, if you will.
I used to joke about it, like in the beginning of like, knowing you had gestational diabetes, like you being like a pro. Did you feel like, oh yeah, like I got this, I know what I'm looking for now? Or was it like scary?
It was still both. Like, it wasn't as scary the first time because I knew what I had to do. I wasn't just out here completely clueless. Mm-hmm. And I knew the flow of gestational diabetes, and that, you're not as sensitive to certain things like within the first 2 trimesters, so you can eat a little bit more than you would in the third trimester. So little things like that made it a little bit easier for me. But like towards the end of the second pregnancy with Heaven, getting to the point where it's like, okay, no matter what I eat, my blood sugar is all over the place. And so when you're in a space where you're out of control, that's when it always gets fearful, regardless of if I've gone through it before. At the end of the day, I can't really do anything. So
yeah, no, I feel you.
Yeah,
I never actually asked you that. Like, if you, of course I'll ask you like how you felt, but like,
yeah,
like where I guess your confidence level was.
Yeah,
I kind of feel bad. Well, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's kind of a weird conversation to have while it's better to have a conversation after the fact. But like me asking you while you're pregnant and like hormones are everywhere, and me being like, yeah, so do you feel confident about having it? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of.
I appreciated it. I mean, I would have appreciated it for sure. I don't think it would have been out of place. But yeah. So
preeclampsia came legit, like pretty much right when the baby was coming.
Probably about a week, maybe.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Big yawns.
Excuse me, I burped. We all over the place. Excuse me. Yeah, preeclampsia probably introduced itself a week, maybe even 2 weeks before, but I didn't catch it until about a week before in pregnancy or a week before delivering.
Did that make you scared at that point? Was it, which one is scarier to you? Preeclampsia?
Preeclampsia.
Okay.
Preeclampsia, because with gestational diabetes, there's a little bit more control there in that they can give you insulin to help regulate your blood sugar. But with preeclampsia, there's so many different factors that affect it, or that revolve around it. Like, of course, high blood pressure, but in addition to that, you have the amount of protein that's in your urine, and I think your liver count, and a slew of other things that could classify you as having preeclampsia, depending on what the results are. So, and all of those things you can't control. Like, I can't control how much protein I have in my urine. I can't control my liver and what goes on there. I can't even control my blood pressure to a degree.
At least not without like being super duper pumped with like a bunch of drugs. Like a drug to take care of your liver, and then a drug to...
Yeah, but even so, while you're pregnant, they can't give you blood pressure medication. They can only give you magnesium. And that is not technically a blood pressure medication, in that it doesn't reduce your blood pressure. It's just supposed to help you prevent you from having a seizure. So, with all that said, preeclampsia is a lot scarier. And, you know, on top of that, you can't necessarily feel when your blood pressure is high. Yeah. So you could walk around, you know, thinking you're fine, and you're on the verge of having a stroke. Yeah. And, yeah, that's just...
That make me want a salad.
It's just
I can't, like, that sounds super scary. Like,
it's just it's very scary, and that's one of those things that where it can immediately affect you and the baby. With gestational diabetes, not so much. And, you know, I don't know, based on how it was explained to me, it just seems like you have a little bit more control with gestational diabetes than you do with preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is always, it's always scarier. Yeah. It's always scarier.
When they were treating, so you go in, you carry Heaven 38 weeks, 39 weeks. It was like 39 while we were there, right? Like we hit 39. And so... Because I remember being ready to turn up on the nurses for Turtle to an extent at certain parts of the pregnancy or the birth this time. But for the most part, I don't know. I feel like it was light for me in terms of like dealing with the nurses and all of that stuff. How did you feel about how they treated you and everything?
With the second baby?
What happened?
I definitely, my experience this time around with the nurses and the doctors was a lot better than the first time. And the big reason for that is because I remember with Alondra, our first daughter, they were just like giving me a lot of stuff, and everybody was coming to me at once, and I guess I didn't really do a good job of, I guess, advocating for myself and like expressing that this is too much. I need, and, you know, just being able to express what I needed at that moment. Yeah. And it could have been as simple as, hey, I just need one person to talk to me at one time. I don't need 10 people coming in. And on top of that, they were like having a really hard time with getting an IV in me. I don't know if you remember that, but they had like 3 nurses try, and then they had the anesthesiologist, I believe, come and try. Yeah. And then they had to bring in like some sort of like like specialist with the little screen to try and find a vein.
I remember that.
And so that was a lot. And on top of that, I think the biggest thing for me was when they gave me the magnesium, and it like immediately raised my my heart rate, and I kept trying to tell them that, and they were just kind of being dismissive a little bit, and was just like, oh yeah, magnesium is not supposed to do that, you should be fine. And you know, I kept telling them that, and on top of that, I kept telling them, I don't know if you remember this, but I kept telling them I needed water. I hadn't drinking any water. I don't even think I ate that day. And they just like would not give me water because they were so focused with trying to get an IV in me.
Yeah, that's with Turtle.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say.
Yeah, all
like
of this is with Alondra.
Okay. Yeah.
So I just had a lot going on with the first pregnancy, and so this time around, I feel like I had a little bit more, because of that experience, I feel like I knew what I needed, and I was able to vocalize that in a manner that was still respectful, you know, and, you know, I didn't come off as rah-rah and, you know, all in their faces, but I was able to express what I needed, and they were willing to honor that. Like, even when it came down to the magnesium, I told them that I didn't like it, I didn't have a good experience with it, and so they didn't give it to me.
Yeah.
So, and my doctor, she was really cool. So.
Yeah. And I was definitely looking out for like because the way they play it, I feel like at the hospital is, you know, the little scan, you know what I mean? And
they scan.
And they just come in there and they'll say, yo, so we're going to give you some Motrin. Here you go. Beep. And they just scan you a little bit. Yeah, right. And you find out after the fact, like that Motrin was $17 a pill kind of thing. But the mag, I remember how the mag made you feel the first time. And I do remember them being kind of cool, you know, last week about like, well, to an extent, the nurses were cool. The doctors were getting on my nerves, especially that one lady. And she was kind of like, and it's, man, I ain't gonna stunt. I know you have your ways and like what you feel about like healthcare and all of that, but like I'm hecka skeptical of like everything really. But, you know, experiencing both of these babies being born, I feel like healthcare is just about, you know, just as much about the dollar as every other business, you know what I mean? And it is that, it's a business. Like, I remember a couple of things making me feel like, man, are these doctors trying to like coerce you into medication and, you know, running up a bill? And the mag, I thought, was one of them at first, because she came in there on some like, you can have a stroke, you can have a stroke, you can have a stroke kind of thing. And she wasn't listening. It'd be different if it, like the first time with the whole mag thing, I think I more so understand you just being like, you know, I don't know, I'm going with what they say because I never had a baby before, you know what I mean? But the second time around, it's like, I know how I felt. You're saying I can have a stroke. I didn't have a stroke. Last time, this is how it made me feel. And it felt like she wasn't trying to hear that, you know what I mean? She was just like, this is our standard practices.
Yes.
You know what I mean? But in my mind, I couldn't help but shake the thought of, are you just trying to scare us into running up a bill? Because I know that mag is the mag and the epidural were almost like neck and neck, it seemed like.
Yeah.
Well, the epidural was a little more, but it was still like, hey, you got the mag, that's an extra however many hundreds of dollars, you know what I mean? And it was like, dang. And then the second one was when old girl brought you the right before you decided to get the mag, and the nurse, after the doctor had called in whatever, the nurse goes and makes you a broth.
Oh, you're
with
talking about
with heaven this time,
yeah.
And that was after the baby.
Yeah, so I got the mag after the baby because my blood pressure spiked up afterwards.
Yeah, that's nuts.
That's a whole nother thing. I mean, like I said, overall, when it came to the labor and delivery piece of it, that experience was a little bit better.
Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, I confused the two.
Yeah,
the Heaven's birth was, the doctor was cool.
Straight. It was pretty straight. I didn't really have too many complaints there, to be quite honest. It was only after, when a couple days ago, when my blood pressure spiked, and the whole fiasco with that. So I'll try to give a quick summary of what happened. Because I had preeclampsia before, I knew that I needed to be extremely cautious of my blood pressure after the baby, because that's also a period. So from delivery to about 6 months, that's another period where preeclampsia can introduce itself or reintroduce itself, and you're still at severe risk of seizure and whatnot if you're not monitoring your blood pressure. So I knew all of that already, and I had been monitoring my blood pressure, and one night I had checked my blood pressure twice and it was pretty high. It was like almost 160 over like a high 90 something. And I should have called it in, but I decided to just go to bed and check it again in the morning. And when I did, it was still just as high. I think it had got even higher. So I decided to call my nurse or call my doctor's office, spoke to the nurse, and they were like, yeah, you need to go to labor and delivery. And so that's what I did. But when we got there, they would not let me in with my 7-day-old daughter that I just had at the same hospital 7 days ago.
Yeah.
And again, she's 7 days old and I'm breastfeeding her. So at this point, she doesn't go anywhere without me. I don't go anywhere without her. And so I wasn't going to go anywhere without my daughter being able to go with me. So I went back to my OB office. Thankfully, they're literally down the street from each other. So that wasn't an issue. So I went to my OB and I told her what happened. And my blood pressure was even higher at that point. And it's one thing to be nervous and stressed and not really know what's happening with your body and you're trying to figure everything out. But it's another thing when your doctor has that same look of concern on your face. I never experienced that before, where my doctor's like, okay, you need to go like right now. And so as scary as it was, though, at the same time, I appreciated that she was actually concerned about me. And she was willing to do everything she could to help me get the help that I needed. And so she told me to go back to the hospital, and I did. And at that point, I recognized that I did need to be seen like immediately. So I had to leave my daughter with my husband in the parking lot and pretty much call him every 10 minutes to see if my baby was okay, if she was hungry, et cetera, et cetera. But it took them, I think, maybe 2 or 3 hours to finally bring my daughter up with my husband, which I feel like it is utterly ridiculous. Yeah. Like I was pissed at the fact that they didn't understand, like they didn't have any sympathy there, but at the same time it's just a common sense. Like this is, even if I didn't have the baby at your hospital, this is a 7-day-old baby and she needs to eat.
Yeah. And
because of your COVID policy or whatever, that you can change at any point if you want. It's not like a mandated law kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was just frustrating. But
I think especially with a few things for me, it was like number one, with what we know about babies versus COVID, like that really should have been a quick call.
Yeah.
On, okay, we can make this exception, especially considering the baby was just born here.
Yes.
7 days ago. Like the likelihood. But even outside of that, what was really trippy is
they had COVID patients in the same building.
That was a whole,
on the same hall already. So I don't understand that either. Even if for whatever reason
we'll accept people that we know have COVID.
Yes. So it's
we won't accept a 7-day-old baby who may or may not.
Yeah.
But I think the crazy thing about it was, and I felt like they weren't giving enough attention to the fact that you're here literally because your blood pressure is spiking.
I could literally.
And what you're doing in saying this lady can't have her baby with her is only elevating blood pressure. You know what I mean? And I don't know. I think that was the worrisome part about me. And then I remember posting a video about it on Facebook, and people were kind of responding in the comments and saying stuff like, yeah, y'all need to take legal action. Somebody was saying that they had issues with that before, and they learned that, I guess, like you just said, the hospital has like their protocols or whatever, but that doesn't trump like law or state mandate or whatever. And so they were saying look into that. And I mean, luckily it didn't last. Like, it wasn't like, hey, they just didn't let us and we left kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think if it was like no exceptions, for sure it took prayer and some time. But I definitely think if it had been like, hey, we can't stay there tonight, you know, they're not gonna let Turtle up, I definitely was gonna be it's gonna be time to apply pressure. That's just ridiculous. But
I mean, it all worked out, thankfully.
Yeah.
Ironically, I had just started pumping, so I had like 1 bottle of pumped breast milk at home. And fortunately, my mom and my parents, they live, or they have a house down the street, and so they were able to get the bottle of milk and bring it to the hospital. Yeah. And so it ended up working out to where if during that time period of me not being able to be with my daughter, at the very least she had some milk to hold her over for a few hours. Yeah. So I am super grateful for that, but I still just didn't appreciate how they handled that, because, you know, the worst could have really happened. What if my blood pressure was extremely high? And at that point, I had no idea what it was at that time until I got checked. But it was in, you know, crisis range to the point where I needed immediate
The
action.
highest I saw was 177 over, was it 103, I think? Something like that.
103, 106. Yeah. Something around there.
But that top number was 177.
Yeah.
Which apparently we also learned that, like, for people who just have high blood pressure all the time, like, maybe that's not that bad, but for your body, like, because you don't just have high blood pressure, that could have gave you a seizure or a stroke.
Right. And my doctor, even today, she apologized, because she's like, you know, as a doctor, I probably should have held my composure a little bit better, but I was genuinely concerned. Like, I've had patients literally seizure in front of me and die, and I just didn't want that to happen to you. And so to hear her say that, it made that experience even worse in my eyes, because you know, God forbid I did have a seizure or something like that, and it could have been prevented if they just let me up with my baby. So
I would say, all in all, like one of the harder things, and we were talking about it on the way home today from your appointment, is like the actualization that, like, we are definitely done having kids. Like, I mean, I don't know that I can say I'm taking it hard, because I think I was always cool with 2, but I think it's a little bit different when it's like the circumstances say you are not having more children, as opposed to just like you deciding, hey, I'm good with 2. You know what I mean? I guess choice. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe right now I feel like I don't want to, but, you know, 3-4 years from now, it's like, man, we can shoot for the 3. You know what I mean? But given where we are and what's transpired at this point, it's pretty much cemented that we will not be shooting for a 3rd. Just because, and I'll be honest, I was scared. I was scared as crap with heaven.
Yeah, how were you? What was your side of things with that experience a couple days ago?
After the birth.
And even with the birth.
So with the birth, I do remember stuff was fairly smooth. Like they, you know, and you ejected the mag and stuff. Yeah, it was hecka quick.
After the epidural.
Yeah, it was like, it was straight. I remember Josh and Crystal joked about how, like, for their second, I think it's Gabriella.
Oh, yeah.
He was just like, I'm reading the paper, I'm watching TV, and she just doing whatever kind of thing. A little bit of me was kind of like that, because I felt like I don't want to be in the way. And I do remember at least once where, and I'll comment on this kind of thing later, but at least once with Turtle, with our firstborn, it was kind of like you were very like obviously angry and going, you know what I mean? But like I kind of was taking some of that heat too, and it made me feel like, all right, I'm in the way, you know what I mean? But then it was like, rub my back, and I was like, okay, I can rub, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I remember having to like tell myself like, hey, with the, you know, the state she's in emotionally and everything else, you just gonna have to kind of, you gonna have to take some else, eat some of this, and just push forward kind of thing. But then coming into the second baby, I was kind of like, man, especially with all these specialists and stuff here, maybe I just need to sit back and, you know, chill. So I wasn't freaking out either because I kind of somewhat knew the ropes. And so like the hospital wasn't as frightening to me, you know what I mean? And quite honestly, because we didn't see anything when it came to like preeclampsia, and we had handled, I feel like for the most part, there's some things that still could have been better, but with even gestational diabetes, like
my doctor said I did good and she was proud of me.
Your doctor said you did good and she was proud of you, but I felt like when we got to the hospital to deliver the baby, like, okay, we've handled it fairly well, so I'm not as scared about like complications and things like that. And I've been praying like a mug. I'm just trusting and believing God's gonna bring a healthy baby. So
that he did.
She
came out,
and so it was hecka quick. 3 pushes, you know what I'm saying? And so the birth was straight. I think the 2 occurrences afterwards. So afterwards or whatever, we go in, the whole fiasco happens. They don't let you into the hospital with Heaven. I started turning up then, and it's funny because not funny, but it was weird because that was supposed to be like the kind of turning point for me with like career wise, like this transition I'm in the middle of. And honestly, just me selfishly, we're about to get started with things with like how our life is about to be. I'm about to be a full-time DJ. I'm, you know, finna go hard, so I'm actually on my way out the house to go do something for business. I'm finna go buy these, you know, garage sales, whoop de whoop. And then it was like, you know, U-turn, bro. Marissa needs to go to the hospital right now. And so I wasn't upset by that. It was like, okay, I can go pick them up later kind of thing. But you know how you have like all these small things that you got to do, and they're relatively small. Hey, I gotta put the trash out on the curb, and I have to pick Turtle up, and I have to stop and get a head of lettuce for dinner tonight. You know what I mean? Like those are small things, but like all 3 together, it seems like this. And so the uncertainty of what's going on when we go to the hospital and your blood pressure was already on top of everything else that I needed to do for business. I got consultations coming up today. I got, you know, I was just going to pick up these garage shelves or whatever. I still haven't done all my tax information. I need to get that in, like all this. And I have a whole like to-do list of like things, right? And so selfishly, that's in the back of my mind. But then like once we got to the hospital, honestly, and they were like, you can't take Heaven in with you, like of course all of that goes away, and I'm just like mad. Like I'm just like I'm finna turn up on something. Like we got through labor and delivery.
You held your composure. I'm really proud of you, actually.
So
you were very quiet, kind of scary quiet, but
well, because again, I was telling myself, because we had talked. Remember, I told you, give me like a code. Like put up 1 finger, that means you at a 2. Put up 3, that means you at a 6. And then we, you know, because so Rissa is, I think it's fair to say this, Rissa is not as much of a confrontation person as I am. And so when it comes to especially stuff like this, I'll be the one to turn up on somebody, and you know what I mean. And I'm not like just no hard gangster, you know, by any means, but I'm not a just let you tell me something and I'm gonna be like okay kind of thing either. And so the whole Heaven can't come up, I'm like, nah, y'all gotta run that by me. I almost slapped, I swear. So we got one lady at the front the first time we came. Then we went to the OB. OB's like, go back to the hospital. Mm-hmm. We go back to the hospital. Luckily, they're like 200 yards away from each other. But we go back to the hospital, and you go up on your own. At first, me and Heaven sit in the parking lot, wait for Grandma to come. They come. When they come, I can go up with you to check on you, right? So that first time I go up with you to check on you, this dude is at the front door, and he stops me. And at that point, I'm trying to get from A to B, parking lot to my wife, check in, you know what I mean? Get her what she needs and just be there. Cause I honestly hate the idea of me and Darrell are both like this. We hate the idea of you just being there with the physicians or whatever, especially me knowing that they might tell you some stuff and your attitude might be more so like, okay, then if I'm there, I'm like, no, wait, explain that. You know what I mean? What do you mean? Kind of thing. So I hate the idea of you just being up there by yourself. I'm just trying to get up there, and homie stops me. I swear, I was finna. It was gonna be an issue, and like I was just ready to just. But he's like, sir, but he was super duper polite, more so than I feel like that first lady was.
Yes.
Like I felt like that first lady's like was kind of like almost condescending. It was like a fake, like I'm so sorry.
It was
kind
very
of thing.
fake.
Yeah, but like I was mad at when side note when she supposed to be calling her supervisor, but she walks off. Yeah,
far.
Walks over there to talk to him. Like, why couldn't you just have that call right here? You know what I mean? Like I feel like you didn't actually call nobody,
or
like
you said something else that we didn't tell you, or
right. You know what I'm saying?
Try to make it seem like.
Anyway, I let the guy live. I get up there, whatever. He had to give me a wristband, ask me some questions about COVID. I get up there. And then coming in the second time, I want to say he asked me some stuff too. But anyway, long story short, we got to the point to where they finally let me and Heaven up there to be with you. And we ended up staying overnight. That whole time staying overnight, I think I was... When we first got in the room, me and Heaven got up there with you, and I was able to talk to you, and you tell me, hey, what are they saying? I knew they were going to push something on you, whether it was MAG or meds or whatever, right? So I wanted to know what the deal was with that. And then you told me, hey, one of the doctors who we had, and that was another thing that kept pissing me off too. It's like we kept hearing from doctors that we haven't seen.
Yes.
Doctor who, whatever, BT is your doctor, and she says to do this. We've never, in 8 months of doing what we, preparing to bring this baby into the world, we've never seen or heard from this person.
And it's only because she was the one calling literally all of the shots. And it's like, I don't even know what this lady looks like, sounds like.
Yeah. But
So
and everybody's like scared of her. Whatever she says goes. She's a pretty no nonsense. Well, I'm like, I don't give a F what she is. We are paying y'all to do a service and delivering this baby. Shut up and listen to what we're saying. And that's or who is the person, the doctor? She was. I remember I was on the phone the first time you had a clinic visit or whatever. This was like 2 or 3 weeks before the baby came.
Yes.
And they tried that. That was the first time. So Dr. So-and-so said this and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I'm on speakerphone yelling because I'm like, I feel like you're just listening to what she's saying. And I'm over here like, no, wait, tell me, what does that mean? Who is Dr. So-and-so? We never heard of her. Okay, well, how can I talk to her kind of thing? And like the whole time, you're like, she's just talking. I'm like, am I on mute? I
was trying to listen to what she was saying so I could actually answer you.
But yeah, so that was frustrating too. Just to go back to once we're upstairs and me, you, and Heaven are there and they are assessing you. Then they move us to that suite or whatever. Once we got to the suite, I started to feel more so relaxed because by then it's like, okay, they're going to have some nurses to take care of you or whatever. And we can get to the bottom of this thing. And
we had a game plan at that point. They were just like, look, we need to keep you here to monitor you.
Yeah.
And this is what we're doing.
Yeah. Now it sucked when they were like, you ready to go home tonight? And
yes. It happened twice, too.
Twice. 6 o'clock comes, and I think we came in probably somewhere around 10 that morning.
Yeah.
6 o'clock come around. It's like, oh, we're going to let you
Your
out.
Your numbers are good. You ready to go home?
Yeah.
Check my numbers again. Right back up.
Spike right back up. Got too excited. But yeah, that was kind of like my, on the side of like how I felt about what was going on. 2 things, and this is what kind of made me feel like, all right, I just need a way to like decompress, and that's why I want to shoot is The mostly centered around the decision regarding your job. And okay, so today we go to the clinic, and on our way there, you checked like your paycheck or something before we get there.
Yeah, so this morning I usually get paid every week for my job, and I knew that my short-term disability was supposed to kick in today. And so I realized that I didn't get paid anything. And so I had called my insurance while we were dropping Alondra off at daycare. And they tell me, yeah, your claim was closed because we're showing that you don't have disability insurance or something like that. And so then I called my job to confirm if that was the case. And they essentially told me that I didn't apply for short-term disability when I was hired, so therefore I don't get that insurance.
Yeah.
So that's what happened.
So with that, and mind you, we just had a baby.
We just got back from the hospital. A very like stressful, situation. And then we're heading back, hoping that you don't get held again. At least for me, I know you had to think that. Like, man, I hope they don't hold me again. Yeah. And so all of that is in the back of our heads or whatever. And then this happens, and I guess the things that I was thinking about, like I said, in the back of my head, I got, okay, the moves that I need to make sure our family is good, right? Financially, business-wise, blah, 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 blah. What do I got to get done today? Then, okay, we're going to go to get you checked on with your blood pressure. Man, I hope they don't hold her again. You know what I mean? Because that experience sucked. And then when this happened with your job, there was a moment where you're explaining stuff, and I asked a question, and I'm naturally now kind of trained to like just let you talk, and I'll either ask like, hey, am I just listening, or do you want me to respond to this kind of thing, or I'll just be quiet and just let you talk kind of thing, because most of the time I don't want to be in the crosshairs of whatever you're dealing with and processing at the time. But today, I think what really got me was I felt like I ended up in the crosshairs in a way. And if I'm honest, this has always been in the back of my head with a lot of different situations. I ended up in the crosshair in a way that nobody else gets this kind of heat. And in my mind, so I asked you something about, did you call so-and-so? And you're like, I'm about to call them. And then like in my head, what I heard me saying back was like, don't get live with me. Get live with whoever. You know what I mean? Don't get live with me. You need to be mad and applying pressure on all these other people, because bringing this home ain't gonna do nothing but escalate everything. Number one, you know what I mean? And then you just gonna have a problem at work and a problem at home, But that's what in the back of my mind. But also it's like, if I'm honest, like just hurt, because it's like, damn, she'll shoot at me, but these other people get passes, or she'll just take, okay, you know what I mean? And so I was dealing with that for the most part and just being quiet. And I think by the time we got to the clinic, I was just kind of like, maybe that's another thing that you just kind of got to eat too, because you're still kind of in the state of like postpartum, and you know what I mean, like I think about that a lot. In fact, with the transition or whatever, that was something I told to one of my superiors at my job, was like, I gotta be paying attention to where you are postpartum, because it's the second time around, and I'm not foolish enough to act like, it'll be exactly like the first time. You know what I mean? And as much as I'm like, oh yeah, Marissa's smart, she's brilliant, she'll, whoop-de-whoop, nobody's exempt
from like those effects of like postpartum depression or anxiety or I don't know, what do they call it, chemical imbalance, or those things just hit you, you know what I'm saying? And so I'm trying to also stay understanding of that and like not like take stuff personal, but it's hard. It's like it's really hard. That's why I was like, I need like some kind of outlet. I was gonna go to the gun range today, but I was like, if I just leave, go to the gun range and you don't know where I'm at, kind of thing, then that might escalate things. If I come home and you're like, where'd you go? I'm like, yeah, I went to the gun range. And so I figured at least doing this would give us opportunity to like, for me to like let it out, you to hear where I'm at, and me to, again, safe space it.
No, I get it. And I do apologize earlier. I know I quickly said it earlier today, but you definitely did not deserve for me to respond to you in that way, regardless of what was happening. I was frustrated, extremely frustrated, and it felt like you were essentially like just trying to hurry up and find the solution, and sometimes that bothers me when you either like don't get the full picture yet, or if it's a situation where I just want you to like have an understanding. I'm not necessarily looking for a solution at this moment. I just want to be heard, and I want you to essentially just feel me on what's happening. And so in that moment when you asked me, because I think you had asked me once before, and it was kind of like, so are you gonna call him? That's how it felt, or that's how I heard it when you asked me that. And so that's why I had responded in that way. But either way, I shouldn't have. I definitely could have held it together a little bit more, but it was everything just combined. Like, it just felt like one thing got stacked right on top of the other, and
I don't know what it is, but something is buzzing in the mic. I heard it just now. That's why I put the headphones on.
Oh.
I'm hoping it don't buzz like that the whole video, but if so, whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, I do apologize though.
I appreciate it. Yeah.
You accept my apology?
I accept your apology.
And I wouldn't have been mad if you went to the gun range. It's been a stressful few days.
Yeah, I'm probably still gonna
go. I have a baby, so I can't really go anywhere. But
yeah,
if I didn't, I would have done something too.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, I do understand you thinking, or at least feeling hurt from the standpoint of, you hardly ever seeing me turn up like that with anybody else. And to see me do that with you, I get that. And it actually reminds me of, it wasn't a quote, it might have been a quote explanation, but somebody said that typically people tend to treat others, the people that are closest to them, worse than they do anybody else. And it kind of goes into how kids act the worst with their parents, and then when they're with everybody else, it's like they're a completely different kid. It's that same type of thing, and I'm not saying that to excuse anything, but I think that definitely plays a role in that. So
yeah,
I just thought about that when you said it.
Yeah, I think it's important for me to say to you, and also for you to know that I have the same expectation of myself, but I am not a safe place for your like dumping of negative energy. And I know a lot of people think that when they think about somebody being their safe place, like, especially like a lot of friendships, unfortunately, like female to female friendships. I've had this conversation with a couple people. It was a lesbian couple once, and then some friends of mine that like they talk to each other and call each other the B word, and their responses to each other is, you know, B, you ain't shit, you know, and all of this stuff. And I'm like, what is that? You know what I mean? And some people believe like that's my love language. That's how we are. That's how we understand each other, whatever. I don't think that's healthy, but I certainly don't think it's healthy in the confines of marriage. And because me being more honest with myself about myself and who I am and how sensitive I am to things now, like, I think it's important to say it to you that like, when I get that, I don't receive that with understand, like 9 times out of 10, I don't receive that with like, yes, that's how we love each other, or yes, that's how, and I'm going to gravitate closer to that. You know what I mean? And I should, you know, cause that's where loving a person despite the person comes in. Right. But like, that's a struggle for me. So I think it's worth telling you, like, that is very, very difficult for me to do. If I get fired at, naturally, I want to either fire back or restrain from or distance myself from that person. You know what I mean? And I mean, I used to be, my firing back used to be hecka strategic and petty, and you know, I can be very petty, and I still struggle with that even now too. You know what I mean? But like, I don't know if you feel that I like it. And I actually would like to ask you this. Do you feel like when I give this kind of energy, or have you ever felt like when I give that kind of energy to Sergey, he can take it? You know what I mean? Or like he'll be all right. Or, you know, I don't have to worry about him. He'll be okay, kind of thing.
I've always been the type of person, I used to say, I don't like getting into fights because I'd be the person to slap you, and then like split second, I'm like, oh my God, are you okay? I'm sorry. Does it hurt? Like, I think too much about how people feel. Mm-hmm. And I know I do that with you all the time. And so 9 times out of 10, if I did act ugly, I'm gonna feel bad about it and want to somehow reconcile it. So my mind never really goes to, yeah, I yelled at him or I cussed him out, he'll be fine. It's usually, if that ever happened, is he okay? How does he feel? Is he mad at me? Mm-hmm. And that results in, are you okay? What's wrong with you? You okay? What's wrong? You okay?
Yeah.
You okay?
If I can be honest too about that, because this is just me honestly just kind of bearing heart here. I feel like, because you ask me a lot, like, are you okay? Mm-hmm. Are you okay? I feel like that when you ask me that feels more like a task to be okay than it feels like concern for whether I'm okay or not. And really? the reason I say that is I feel like you seldomly come out with, especially in situations where I know, like, you just take this same example, like, hey, I fired at him or whatever, and, you know, I was wrong. And, you know, I feel like you know that, but instead of it being like, hey, I apologize for doing this thing, you know, will you, and you just said it and I accept that, but I'm saying, like, when we were in the car, you know, it'll just go silent. Like, a lot of times, like, something might happen, and maybe you're in the wrong, maybe we're both in the wrong, you know what I mean? But maybe you're in the wrong and it'll just kind of go silent. And then an hour or two later, we haven't had a conversation about it. I haven't confessed, like, man, that was actually really hurtful, or like, man, that just straight up pissed me off when you did or said that, kind of thing. But you're asking me, are you okay? You know what I mean? You good? Kind of thing. It's almost like there's this big jump over, hey, I'm sorry for what I did, or I recognize what I did probably hurt your feelings or probably made you mad or whatever. It's just, are you okay? And I feel like at that point, when you ask me, cue the song Say It by Xavier Omar, I feel like I can't answer that question, because if I tell you how I really feel, now you're mad at me feeling bad about something that happened 2 hours ago, and it's then at that point an issue that I feel something about some 4 hours ago, as opposed to, hey, let me address my fault and, you know, why you feel the way you feel. And so a lot of times, like when you ask me if I'm okay, I'll be like, yeah, I'm good, kind of thing. And most of the time I'm not, but it's because of that other side of it. I feel like that was a challenge. That wasn't it almost felt like you were telling me you better be good.
Ooh. No, I get that. And I'm glad you pointed that out, because I didn't look at it in that way. And I can see how it'll feel like I'm essentially glossing over an offense that I've caused you, or that I've directed towards you, and expecting you to tell me that you're okay. It's almost like, or at least what I pictured in my mind is, you know, a guy slapping a girl across the room, and then 2 hours later, you know, coming back to her and just being like, hey, you good? And that's not right, and it doesn't feel good. And so I think in those instances, I definitely, when I'm asking you, it's definitely not a matter of me glossing over something. Usually I don't know if I caused you, and if I did anything to you, and I'm like confused, but I do see that there's some type of tension, or just like a weird vibe of some sort, and I just don't know where you are. And that's usually when I'm asking. And if you feel otherwise, then, you know, definitely let me know. But if I ever feel like, or if I recognize that I did something to offend you, at least I think that I come to you and I address it, and I say something like, hey, did you feel a way about this conversation that we had, or are you upset about this? I'm still asking you.
Here's how it comes.
And you're still kind of like, no, I'm fine.
Yeah. So remember what I said about the challenge. I can probably count on one hand in the last year where it's been like, the first words out of your mouth is, hey, when I did this, did that upset you? Or, hey, are you mad that I did this? What always comes first is, hey, are you okay? Which, when I hear that, again, I hear a challenge. I don't hear a concern. And then afterwards, is it me? Is it something that I did? Which then puts the onus on me to express myself and tell you what you did, as opposed to you recognizing, taking ownership of what you might have possibly done. And then if I say something, which likely I won't, say whatever it is that offended me, then at that point you can address it, which is why it always feels like a challenge, as opposed to you recognize Sergey's very quiet, scarily quiet, and then going, let me run the Rolodex back. What could I have done to, because I'll be 1,000% honest, when you're moping around and all of that, I know, for me, I know exactly what I did, usually, you know what I mean? And it, like I said, it might be a situation where we're both wrong, you know what I mean? But like, by the time we talk about it or I confront you, and not to say that I handle all my situations right, because I don't always do it this way by any means, but by the time we're having the dialogue, I know. We went back and forth. She said something and then I said something, but when I said it, I was kind of loud, you know what I mean? Or one time we were talking not a couple days ago, and this wasn't an actual argument. We were talking about a photographer friend of mine and their attitude of ours and their attitude or whatever, and how some people seem to be kind of accepting of that person's attitude because they feel like his heart's in the right place. I said his anyway. That person's heart is in the right place, and I said, yeah, that reminds me a lot of like one of your family members who everybody just seems to accept, right? And we weren't arguing, and that wasn't me even throwing a jab. That was actually just, but I'm saying, I'm using this as a example. If we were in an argument where we're both talking about something that's heated, and I throw out a family member, like, you know what I mean? If that was an argument, and I was like, well, you do the same thing for, you know what I mean? Yeah. That's the situation where like we're both wrong, and then after the fact, you might, we start talking about it again. You might ask me, hey, are you okay? Kind of thing. And if we do get into the back and forth, by then I know I should not have said so-and-so's name.
I was just going to say, I didn't want to turn it into a scenario where you express something to me and then I dump something back on you. But I'll put it this way. I definitely understand where you're coming from and what you're saying, because I'm recognized. I've felt the same way too, in that if I've felt offended or got mad at you for something, I would feel like you didn't say anything, and it would be nice if you had come forward and apologized, or just did whatever the thing was that I maybe would have wanted you to do or something like that. But when it's not done, it definitely feels like either neglect or that the offense is glossed over and it never really addressed. So I definitely get that, and I think that I think it sounds like we both kind of have this expectation of us wanting the other to admit our fault in something, like to come forward without having to bring it out of the other person. But for me, I can say it's hard to do, and I have to realize that might be the same for you. Yeah. Because I definitely think that there are things that there are things you probably feel like, I know exactly what I did. I know exactly what she's mad about. But I do think that there are other things where you're like, I don't know. She just looks like she has an attitude today.
Yeah. And no, I was going to say, like, don't get me wrong. I get that sometimes you legit just, I have no clue what's wrong with that person. You know what I mean? I feel that. Because sometimes it may not necessarily be something that I did to you or vice versa. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying that, you know, if I just got home from wherever, I just got back from a show and you see that I'm sulking or whatever, I'm not talking about that. You know what I mean? If you see me and you're like, what's wrong? Kind of thing, like, you ain't been around me. You don't expect that it's something. I'm just in the situations, and I meant to actually just like ask you, or I think I did ask you that, or if whenever you noticed, especially after a dialogue of ours or something like that, if you ever notice when you're about to ask me what's wrong or if I'm okay, if you ever know he's upset about this thing that I did or said, kind of thing. For you, it's always been just, I don't know what's wrong with him.
No. And no, I don't be knowing. I really don't be knowing. And if I have an idea, I'll point it out, but I'm never like 100% sure that yes, he's upset because I.
Well, maybe not 100% sure, but like that don't come to mind. Like, you don't, like I said, the example of you and I talking about and how he comes off to people, and then me saying, yeah, that reminds me of, like, if that were an argument kind of thing, and then we both just got hecka quiet out of nowhere, but then 2 hours later you come in and go, you okay? What's wrong? You okay? Something wrong? Kind of thing. Like, in that moment, you wouldn't know.
No.
He's probably upset because of what I said about, you know what I mean?
No, because I feel like what tends to happen is if we have a heated argument of some sort, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's usually addressed by the end of the conversation, and we have some sort of exchange of "you good? Yeah, you good? Yeah, okay," kind of thing. And an hour later, I realize you're still not good.
I feel like that only happens with
so-
like minor stuff. And what I mean by minor stuff is like stuff that like we can get to the bottom of pretty quickly.
Here's why I always feel okay.
Go ahead.
Still sleeping. Here's why I always feel pretty clueless. It's in most situations, you'll tell me that you're fine. Even when we talk about it, you'll say you're fine and you're good, or you're not tripping. You're not thinking about what I just said, whatever. You say that a lot. And so that leaves me in a position to where I don't know what is going on with you, because although you say that, your demeanor, your facial expressions for the next 2 hours are usually different. And you're talking less, which usually is a big indicator, because you usually always got something to talk about and say. And so when that's not happening, it's like, okay, I don't know. I don't know if it's he just doesn't want to talk to me today. I don't know if it even has anything to do with me. And a lot of times it'll happen when we hadn't really had a ton of communication. I think recently, actually, it might have been, it was sometime within the last week. I remember we were coming from somewhere. It was just me and you, and the entire ride, you didn't say anything. And I thought to ask you if you were okay, but I refrained. I can't remember where we were going. Like the whole way there, you didn't say anything, and then the whole way back, you barely said anything. But it was like what was said was like we were talking about. It could have been something like what we were gonna have for dinner, or something like that.
I feel like I know what you're talking about too.
And it's like I don't know what. I don't know, because even while we were at home, we didn't really have a ton of exchange there either. Like, you were barely talking at home. And then when we got home, you still weren't really talking like that. So
yeah, I don't remember what that situation is, but again, like I was saying before, that's my feeling whenever "hey, are you okay" comes, is like, man, is this a challenge? Like, I have to be okay, you know what I mean? Like, if I say I'm not okay.
Why do you feel like that?
Because usually if I say I'm not okay, it's seldomly met with I guess the right word would be, I don't know the right word. It's seldomly met with, okay, I didn't know that, I was wrong, I'm sorry, I apologize, kind of, will you forgive me, kind of thing. Usually it goes into a deeper dive, and sometimes it turns into a situation where, like, dang, somehow I am wrong, for whatever. And sometimes I might be, you ask me, "Hey, are you okay?" I tell you, "Yeah, I didn't like your tone when you said this," and you go, "Well, I only got upset and had that tone because you said this about my mama." And then I'm like, "Oh, dang, yeah," you know what I mean? Like, those situations, sure. But I was just making a point earlier that a lot of times, like the situation with your job and all of that, I'm programmed to be quiet and then kind of deal with stuff eternally, because Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
Okay.
And I don't want to ramble, but
I mean, it's, you've said this before, so it's not really.
Yeah. Oh, the point I was making earlier about like me not being a safe place for just like
negativity.
Just like
That's what you said.
Or negative energy. Yeah.
Negative energy.
Yeah. And what I mean by that, to clarify, it's like negative energy that you have for someone else or something else. You know what I mean? Like, it's not fair for me to go as a teacher and teach and get upset and frustrated by these kids not turning their assignments in, and as a result the principal mad at me because I got failing students, and then the parents are emailing me too, and everybody's getting on my nerves, and I come home, I yell and flip out because dinner ain't, you know what I mean? It's not right for me to project whatever's going on in my day on you. In a situation like earlier today where your job is not going to pay you for long-term or short-term disability, although you just had a kid and all of that, and it makes you feel a particular way. I'm just trying to help, and then I am finna call them kind of like, wait, whoa, because especially again with me knowing you, it's like I ain't never heard her turn up on nobody else at her job like that, and they the ones who got her in this situation, but I'm the one that's getting the fire. You know what I mean? That's what I mean when I say like I'm not a safe place for that. You know what I mean? Now it's, I don't know if I'm going to say it's justified to just be yelling at each other or whatever, but like it makes sense if we're going back and forth on something, or if I did something, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not the perfect husband. Like, I forget to take out the trash and other stupid stuff, and even worse stuff. You know what I mean? I go the whole day, don't even recognize you, don't say good morning, don't give you a kiss or a hug or whatever. And that's been pent up all day kind of thing. And when I see you finally, you got an attitude kind of thing, that's probably just warranted. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, particularly in situations where you got negative energy or an issue with someone or something else, and then it comes my way. I've seen that in a few different, especially from your job, so yeah, I was just making that point.
You said you've seen that?
Yeah. Like where you'll just be frustrated, and rightfully so. You'll be frustrated from whatever's going on at work, but I have to deal with
and I take it out on you.
Yeah, and I'm not saying taking it out like all the time you yell at me or nothing like that. I'm just saying I get, and I understand it may be hard to kind of like turn off the frustration from work, but when you come home or out of your office, you know what I mean? I get, down, upset, bothered, Marissa kind of thing. And it's like, I didn't do nothing to you. You know what I mean? Like,
so, because I get directing my frustration towards you, and that the way that I'm communicating with you, responding to you, talking to you is in a negative way. And then that's one thing. Me just being frustrated in general at whatever, work, friend, family member. But I'm not necessarily directing that towards you, and not
like overtly or outwardly. But I'm just saying, like, it's still something that's on my mind. Like, it's still. Is
that what you're saying?
No. Oh, yeah. Yes and no. I get that you're frustrated about things at work. You know what I mean? But you have a way of, when you're bothered and you're talking to me, it's just like, it doesn't come across as just like I'm bothered. And I don't know, maybe I'm so much of a sucker for your, and I mean it's sucker for like your approval or whatever. So like any kind of like, why would you do that? Like any kind of like look or, energy like that is kind of like, I feel like attacked, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like you might be bothered by your job, and when you come out, I ask something about dinner, or hey, did you want to, I don't know, let's just stick to dinner. And you're like, no, I didn't. That tone right there for me is like, oh, get the F out the way, Sir J. You know what I mean? But
Sorry, I just want to know what you mean by.
I'm not saying that that's a situation where you're firing at me. I'm just saying I get the residual effect of you being down or frustrated by, work.
And so when you say I'm not the person for negative energy.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about that. When I say I'm not the punching bag or the safe place for the negative energy that belongs to someone else or someone else deserves, meaning the direct. Yeah, you. Right. That's what I was saying. Now, on a separate thing, me as a teacher, the comment you made, you're a much better person on your breaks. Mm-hmm. Whatever that was you felt then, because when he's on his breaks, he's genuinely more, happy, excited, wakes up, giddy, sings out loud, cooks, whatever, spends more time with the girls, whatever it is, kind of thing. All those things that and it ain't like I'm just yelling at you, I ain't never just came home like, why this damn house ain't so, like I ain't never done that. But I probably would often come home and just be like, you asked me, how was your day? Yeah. You know what I mean? And I could imagine, dang, it's crazy actually thinking about it. I could imagine you asking me how my day was, longing for a conversation about how each other's day went. But my response of just seems dismissive to the conversation as a whole. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? I'm saying that flipped, where I get negative energy, not direct offensive energy, but just I get the negative residuals of whatever from work sometimes.
Are you saying that is not something that you want?
No, for either of us. No. I'm saying that separately from that comment.
Okay.
That first comment, I'm just saying like, hey, I'm not gonna be a punching bag for whatever you should be saying to them. Don't come over here yelling at me, blah, 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 blah. But also, in addition to, I also noticed for both of us, because I just gave an example of both of us, right? Like when I got to go teach or whatever, I'm drained and I come home, or I'm frustrated and I come home and I just have that kind of, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Heck, when I got to wake up early in the morning, I'm not a nice guy. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But it's my responsibility to channel that correctly. Thoughts?
When it comes to, I really want to leave the conversation we had in the car, and I responded the way that I responded. I really want to leave it at, I should have done a better job at controlling my emotions at the time, and I was wrong for responding to you in that way, regardless of how I felt or whatever. And I want to leave it at my apology. So
cool. I appreciate and accept your apology. I have it down on here to talk about some other stuff too, but this mug is long, so we're gonna go.
Oh, okay.
I was just gonna talk about the transition.
Oh, your job?
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, that could be a different video.
Yeah. All right. Well, I was going to suggest the handshake, but
I could try.